We don't want to limit our experience to a body-mind. But
Yes.
at the same time, are we not free to experience through everything else that arises out of consciousness? You know, I mean, there will be objects that arise. I mean, that's,
Yes.
I'm sitting here, but I'm not limited.
Yes.
And then is that kind of the magic that you're, or am I totally off base? You seem to be on one hand saying that we shouldn't be limited, borderless in the sense that.
Yes, we are. I'm saying that we are. We are borderless, but we truly are. Consciousness is borderless. And creativity, you know, is magic. I mean, look at this.
Okay.
Look at this creation. Isn't it amazing?
Absolutely.
You look at this. It's wondrous. It's like you know, you face the shades of you. If you face the shape of the movement, the energy, the perception, the awareness. It's quite wondrous. So there is a recognition of creation, but what accompanies this this awesome revelation of creation is that the Creator is beyond. And yet, this creation is not apart from the Creator. But this creation doesn't define the Creator. It's like a musical notes. It's such, you know, like when you're playing a symphony, such beautiful musical notes. But not any one musical note or any group of musical notes defines a symphony or defines the piece, you know, defines the composition. And yet this marvelous the notes and the successions of them. But the revelation of the Creator, of our true nature, is a non-phenomenal revelation. It's a direct revelation of God knowing Himself, self-consciousness realizing itself, awakening to itself. But it's not that consciousness has ever not known itself or has ever not been itself. It's at the mind level that the veil is lifted. And then the ordinary becomes extraordinary. There's a saying in Buddhism, I think, that ordinary mind is extraordinary. There is a saying like that the mind with a minuscule m is none other but the Buddha mind, than the mind of consciousness. But that revelation, that mind, meaning world, body, mind, our experience, is actually divine, is a realization that comes post-awakening. It cannot be understood or experienced without the realization of that is sort of behind the scene. I'm not sure if I strayed away from your question. So if there are some follow-ups, please let me know. Keep me on.
I guess what I was sensing from your response to her is that even though we're not, and I'm repeating myself, so I'm probably just stuck here, even though we're not limited, there is still this, I guess, a new way of receiving communication, or that is now totally outside of what we were constricted before.
We've never been limited. It's an impression, like if you dream in your night dream, if you dream that you are a 5-year-old boy, that doesn't mean you are a 5-year-old boy. So limitation is like that. It's like a dream impression. But from the dream impression, meaning believing that I am a 5-year-old boy, without being aware that I'm dreaming that dream, then I'm perceiving the entire world with a 5-year-old boy eyes. Yeah, I'm looking to play with Legos or whatever. I don't know what 5-year-old boy, and I'm unhappy if somebody plays with my Legos. So you're dreaming. You're a 5-year-old boy, and that 5-year-old boy is having their own dreams. That 5-year-old boy is getting upset because mommy didn't make me my favorite sandwich. So it's a dream inside of a dream. But the whole thing is a dream. How real is a dream? The only reality of the dream is consciousness. Meaning, the content of the dream and the story of the dream is fictitious, but the fact of dreaming is not. The pink elephant inside the dream is not real, but the fact that you are dreaming, that's not a dream. That's the fact. There is a fact that you are dreaming. The fact of the dream is consciousness, because consciousness is what perceives all images, all perceptions, what's hearing these words right now. At least that's how I use the term consciousness. Consciousness is necessary for the dream. To perceive a pink elephant, consciousness has to be there. This pink elephant can go, and a tiger, a Bengal tiger, can appear. Consciousness will perceive that as well. So the reality of the pink elephant, the reality of the Bengal tiger are not. There's no reality to them. There is a reality only to consciousness. So the reality of dreams is consciousness. Talking about the night dream. But you can use the same metaphor to talk about this dream, this waking dream. The reality of this waking dream, these perceptions, is not the perception. It's not the pink elephant or the Bengal tiger or the man or the woman, or it's not. The reality of this waking dream is consciousness. So through the 3 states, through the waking states, the dream state, the deep sleep state, there is a non-state that runs through all states, which is consciousness.
Kind of follow-up question.
Yes, please.
By consciousness, you mean basically what is looking, what is hearing, what is sensing right now, right?
Yes.
Okay, and is this consciousness personal or impersonal?
Impersonal.
Impersonal.
Impersonal. Meaning, it's the same consciousness that perceives through these eyes, through those eyes, through these eyes, through these eyes, through these eyes. I use the metaphor of electric current. Like in this house, for example, there is one electric current that shines through all maybe 50, 60 different light sources, light bulbs, and so on. But it's one consciousness. the personal impression is at the local level. So at the mind level, there is a personal impression. So I am seeing the screen, but Francesca is not seeing the screen. So at the local level, there is an impression. At the mind level, there is this perception, there is perception A, and there is perception B, but perception A and perception B are different. Like the light bulb, this one is incandescent, the other one may be fluorescent, for example. At the local level, it is very local. It's different. A and B, perception A and perception B are different, but the consciousness is not different.
Right, I understand it's the quality, the very behavior, so to speak, of consciousness, of being conscious of something, that is the same. But the content of consciousness could be different for different people, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It is. It is different. Because what you're perceiving now, I'm not perceiving.
Right.
You know, it is different. It's, and that's where the confusion arises in ignorance. We believe that consciousness is different. That's the very important point. The impression is that, oh, I'm perceiving this perception, you're perceiving that perception.
Right.
I don't know your perception, therefore my consciousness is different from your consciousness. That's what thought says. In fact, my perception is different from your perception. But I am not the perception, I am that perceives. So you go right now to that perceives this perception. You're perceiving a perception right now, yes? Right now, this moment, there is a perception you're perceiving. So rather than going to the perception, meaning you're seeing the screen, you're seeing that, rather than going to the perception, without ignoring the perception, also go to that perceives, to the consciousness that perceives. The consciousness that perceives is not perceived, but it is perceiving. It is perceiving, yes? But it's not perceived. So you cannot turn to the consciousness that perceives and says, oh, the consciousness that perceives is yellow, is 8 foot tall, is a man or a woman. You can't, because it's not perceived. You can turn to the object that you perceive and say, okay, well, yeah, I see this table is 2 foot tall, blah, blah, you know, this chair, this pants are blue, these socks are red. You can turn to what is perceived, but the perceiving you cannot turn to, because the perceiving is not a form. And yet, you cannot deny perceiving.
Yeah, well, I understand what you're saying is that you want to go to that which perceives the perceiving.
Yes.
I can understand that mentally.
Yes.
And theoretically, you can go one level up, one level up,
yes, I understand.
more abstract.
Right.
But in practice right now,
yes,
I can only go to the level that perceives.
Beautiful.
Not the level that perceives the perceiving.
You got it. Beautiful. Why? Why? Because to go to what perceives the perceiving, you don't go anywhere, because you are the perceiving. So anyways, what you said is beautiful, because you cannot go to a level that perceives the perceiving, because you are the perceiving. Who's perceiving right now? You.
Right.
So you are the perceiving. So in fact, you cannot go to what perceives the perceiving, but you are the perceiving. You are that perceives. Not a form. I'm not talking about the man, or I'm not talking about age, or what shirt you. I'm not talking about the scene. I'm talking about that. You are that perceives. And I am that perceives as well. Thought might say, I that perceives is a different I that perceives that perceives. That's thought that says that. But from my experience, I never experience a different I. I never experience any different perceiver. Because consciousness is not separate, is not consciousness A, next to it is consciousness B, next to it is consciousness C. It's not like that. Mm-hmm. Consciousness is borderless and universal. You have to go to your experience to realize that that's the case. That is the case. We never experience anybody else's consciousness. There is no such thing. It's a thought. Thought says, damn it, I cannot experience her consciousness. It's killing me. What? Troublemaker. You know what I mean?
The fact that I cannot experience other people's consciousness, I mean, it can be explained in two ways. Mm-hmm. Okay, one is, as you just said, damn, there's another consciousness that I cannot experience. It's just a matter of, I cannot really meet people. It's consciousness. Another way of saying, okay, and all this is just my thoughts. Whatever the other people's consciousness is just thoughts arising in my own consciousness. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, both can be... Can be explained.
I like that.
The thing is, what is the truth?
Yeah, well, all right.
What is the truth?
Right. Well, you know that there is more than one mind. Meaning, you know that you're perceiving this perception, and Francesca is perceiving perception B. Mm-hmm. And she can take a picture. And you can take a picture, you look at the two pictures, and they're two different pictures. Right. So that's established that, okay, it's very clear, there are many different minds. But the question we're asking is not, are there many different minds? Because we already know that. We're asking, are there different consciousnesses? Is there more than one consciousness? Is there more? That's the question we were asking. Is there more than one consciousness? Right. So, from our experience, we only experience this perception. Uh-huh. Yeah. When we turn our attention to consciousness, we say, okay, there is obviously a perception and there is a perceiving of the perception. Mm-hmm. When I turn my attention to the perceiving of the perception and ask myself, where is the perceiving? I look at that question, I cannot find a location. Then I ask myself, well, what size? What's the size of the perceiving? I know there is a size to the perception. For example, the screen is 14 inches. Mm-hmm. But what is the size of the perception, of the perceiving? So there is no size. Then I ask, what is its density? There is no density. What is its depth? There is no depth. Where is its location? There is no location. Okay, so there's no location, no size, no shape, no. It has no worldly or mind qualities. Right? Mm. It opens the door a little bit. I'm not saying it proves anything. It opens the door to the possibility that maybe there are no borders to it. Maybe it's shapeless and borderless. Maybe it's, obviously, I cannot find any shape to it, so therefore I cannot say it is contained in this bottle. It has no shape, no form. I cannot say it's contained in this body. I cannot say it's contained in a skull. I cannot say it's contained between those 2 points. So it opens the door to the possibility that, well, maybe consciousness is universal. Changing direction a little bit. If there is more than one consciousness, if there is consciousness A, and consciousness B, and consciousness C, and consciousness D, what knows that? What would know that?
I love it.
You're coming, if there is more than one reality, if there are like 3 realities, what would know that? Mm-hmm. So when you ask that question, it doesn't prove anything, but it pokes more and more holes into the notion that there is more than one consciousness. I remember once seeing this little study, this experimental study, where they had a aquarium, fish tank, fish tank, and there was a fish, one big fish in the tank, yeah, and the fish just was, and they had two cameras. One camera was looking at the fish tank from one side, so it saw the fish this way, long, was about 1 foot long. And one camera was filming the fish from the front, so it saw, you know, the face of the fish. And those two cameras were connected to two different screens. And in screen number 1, we saw, and the people in screen number 2 saw, and they said, ah, two different fish. Two different fish. It's interesting, you know, interesting. One more thing. Is a metaphor of a central radio station. Let's say you have a central radio station downtown Washington, D.C. that is NPR, National Public. In this, it has 20 different programs. Okay, it's emitting, you know, different shows. One is on about dinosaurs. Another one is about the situation in the Middle East. Another one is about the plant life in the Amazon, etc. And all these different stations you turn on, it looks like you're listening to many different stations, while in fact it is one central diffusing thing. All I'm doing is sharing with you some higher reasoning tools to poke holes at the multiple consciousness, you know, theories, because ultimately the ultimate proof, if you want to use that term, is in the tasting of the pudding, is the actual realization that yes, that is the reality, unshakable. It has to be like your unshakable reality. But you cannot borrow it from somebody else. I'm just sharing with you. So the infinite minds does not prove infinite consciousness. An example is like, now, just still in trying to poke more holes to. This morning you had a thought of about maybe your mother. 5 minutes later you had a thought about breakfast. Then you had a thought about you know, what are you going to do on Monday. Then you had a thought about, oh gee, your resolutions for this new year. So you had 100 thoughts. And every thought is different. But you're the one who had, I mean, you, that one same consciousness, that same awareness, whatever you want to call it, that same beingness, whatever you want to call it, are the one who had all these thoughts. This is it. You see? 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 So the fact of multiple experiences does not lead to the conclusion of multiple consciousnesses. And it's the freedom of consciousness, the freedom, if I want to use religious terms, the freedom of God. To dream all dreams. Nothing limits consciousness. Nothing limits the infinity and the omnipotence of the divine. It dreams all dreams. It's actually dreaming all dreams. It's dreaming, goodness, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? It's dreaming my thoughts about my cousin, etc. It's dreaming all dreams. That is one dreamer. It's all, I'm only speaking in metaphors. All of satsang is metaphors. Because the truth of satsang is a silence, is a silent presence, the aware presence that does not belong to anybody. It is the hum of the universe, if you want to use that term. It is what hums the universe. It's not the hum of the universe. It's what hums the universe.
So I started to, as I've told you before, often the first transformational event that occurs for me is energetic. And I'm just sort of stuck in this mulling space, and suddenly we're on a wavelength, and I'm feeling and hearing something that is transformational. And what I've noticed is the qualitative difference. In other words, things are lighter. There's a certain I feel energy flowing, and even though I'm still in my body and mind, but body and mind are happening in consciousness. So even if I had a terrible pain in my shoulder or something, it's not the same because it's something that's happening in consciousness.
Yes, yes.
It's like I could have the worst terrible kind of
yes,
but it's okay because it's happening in consciousness.
Yes, right.
So then I tend to move into this feeling how beautiful everything is. Just I mean, I'm looking for this qualitative and exploring it, touching it, to sustain this beautiful place. And then I get to even if everything's happening in consciousness and the realization that consciousness is separate from body, mind, and even kind of possibly has its own sort of endurance beyond that, becomes something that adds to this qualitative pleasure in the whole experience.
Yes, yes.
Then that kind of comes up as something worth feeling around.
A couple of important points. No. There is no separation. The body-mind, what we refer to as the body-mind experience, it's made out of consciousness. Like when you're walking in the desert, there is a mirage. You see like a city, but it's made out of heat. There is no city. It is the heat that takes on the form of a city. The intimacy of what appears and consciousness is 100% intimacy. The world, body, mind is not separate from consciousness. It's that the reality of the world, body, mind is the reality of consciousness. The reality of consciousness is not the reality of the world, body, mind. The reality of the world, body, mind is the reality of consciousness. It's sort of a directional. There is one direction, not it doesn't go both ways. But it's really important to realize, and that has to come at the experiential level, that the world, body, mind, what we refer to world, body, mind, meaning this very moment, this perception, which is a perception, meaning a world, body, mind perception, its substance is consciousness itself. It is not, you cannot pull it out of consciousness or pull consciousness out of it. Its substance is consciousness. So you never experience a world, body, mind. You're always experiencing consciousness. You're always experiencing consciousness.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Now, to come to that delight and that peace and that sweetness at the energetic level that comes onto you, that comes with the realization that what you truly are, through and through, is consciousness. The Jack impression is like the sound of these words. there is no jack.
It's not you're saying that it's just as transitory, or that consciousness speaks this jack in a sense without ever being it.
It's a mind play. It's out of the freedom of consciousness. It says, okay, fine, let's do a jack thing. But when what is the expression? The rooster comes home to roost? Is that the expression? When the roosters comes home to roost, they take Jack with them back home.
I'm struck with the freedom that you're proposing here.
And sense of play.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's what always seems to come up.
But when you're playing hide and seek, you know you are playing. Of course, you get wrapped up in the play. It's a lot of fun. It's exciting. Oh, they're not going to find me. You're right under the sheet, and you're right there sitting on the chair under the sheet. But you know it's a game. You know it's like the magician. You know, the father takes his son to the circus, and the magician is going to saw the lady in half, and the son is pulling his daddy's shirt. Dad, you have to do something. He's going to cut the lady in half. But the father is laughing. Because he knows. It's amusing for the father to go to the circus. But he knows that this lady is not actually in danger.
Excuse me, I have to go.
Yes,
I have to go.
beautiful.
But thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Are you going to you next weekend?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay, great.
Yes,
Okay,
beautiful, nice,
I'll look it up.
lovely.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Be safe. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I forget to. So, yeah. Yeah. So it settles. You know, it settles. It's effortless. It's a relaxation into consciousness. You don't need to seek it. It's there. It's right there. It's a relaxation. It's a releasing of the tendencies, of the habits in the body mind. Relaxing at the body level, the belly, the legs, the arms, the shoulders, allowing the energy to flow. And it goes beyond, it knows no borders. It's just, all that dissolves in the relaxations. So it's a relaxation, a multi-dimensional relaxation. It goes in all directions. Beyond the Cartesian plane.
It just sort of surprises me that I forget it.
Yeah, well, it's okay, no big deal. Body-mind is a habitual instrument. It's an instrument that operates with habit, by habit. Reflexive, That's how you can tell the body works. The doctor takes you in, with that little hammer, they do it, then, the leg goes, it's built in.
We need some kind of thing that breaks the habit.
They hit you once on the once on the head. That would break the habit.
In a way, that's what different kinds of religious practices do. They just have this little, I'll touch my arm, or I'll say a chant or something that,
Right, but it's still very often the person doing it.
Can be.
It's supposed to be breaking it, but very often it's
not doing anything.
it's a practice. It's mind doing
One
practice.
of the huge challenges.
Yeah.
But isn't it it's sort of ironic that the fact that there's no jack actually frees them up to be the expression of the jack?
Yes, absolutely.
It's sort of this ironic thing that if you just let go of what you thought or the significance that you had to the person, then the person is freed up to actually be the expression.
Yeah.
Well, it's freedom only belongs to consciousness. I mean, consciousness is already free. You know, it's the meaning of freedom is consciousness. Really, it's so. Yeah. There is no person, but it's you know the freedom belongs to consciousness, and that's already free, and that's the beauty of it. It's already free.
But isn't there sort of this additional, like, where he's talking about the bliss of it is kind of the realization of that?
That's right. I mean, that's what's real. That's what is real. Talking about it, or thinking about it, or planning it, or imagining it. None of that is real. That's the point. I just get this.
Yeah.
I can feel the wave.
Yeah.
And it's just lovely. I mean,
Yeah.
everything gets washed away.
There is bliss as unshakable peace. Including blissful experiences, but the blissful experiences would not define it. It's like an ocean with. No, that's not a good image. It's like a symphony with its crescendos, you know, on occasion the cymbals and, you know. But the whole thing is a symphony. It's not just the striking of the cymbal and, you know, the strings that are the experience of consciousness. It's the entire. So there is a recognition, a reveling. Reveling, is that an English word? To revel is a reveling. To reveling. It's a reveling in that recognition. But beyond all, it's a causeless peace, inner tranquility, freedom, and happiness and beauty, joy.
You get off the nirvana samsara wheel.
Completely off all wheels.
The wheels came off the cart.
That doesn't sound that much fun. The wheels coming off the car. We have to keep the wheels on the car, but the other wheels we don't need. Very beautiful to be with you all. Thank you very much for your love.